Allô les mecs et les mecs. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is education. On the conversation on education, I'm going to talk about reading the room, the concept of reading the room. And I think this is an important conversation because if we want to have successful interactions with people, we have to be able to get a sense as to the vibe in the room. And so I say the word vibe sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it's important that we recognize that us understanding the tone of the environments that we're stepping into, or the cultures that we're stepping into, primes us for success in integrating and in navigating those settings as well. So it's really important that we all recognize that if we want to make a great impression, or if we want to give ourselves the most opportunity to do well and to integrate, then we have to develop this competency, and it is this competency to read the room. So that also involves making sure that we're not approaching conversations from a point of egocentricity. We're not approaching conversations thinking about all the things that we would like to speak about, know about, all the things that we want to bring into motion. We have to take into consideration the other perspectives, the history that plays into the interactions between people as well. Like, it's really, really important that before we really make our claim and set ourselves up, that we set ourselves up for success. And how you do that is through this capacity to read the room. So I'm going to be talking about it by building it out into building blocks, because I think that that makes it a little bit easier. A lot of people think that reading the room is more of an intuition. It's something that people either are born with the ability to do or not. It's like reading the energy in the room. But I tell you, you can break it down to a science. And so here are some of the building blocks that I feel play into being able to read the room. So one of the first elements of being able to read the room is knowing your audience, but not just knowing your audience, recognizing that with every person that you interact with, that it should shift and change the way you decide to communicate. And so communication is not the same as shooting from the hip. It's not the same as just having sort of like an off-the-cuff conversation. Communication is when you're communicating a message with intent, that there is meaning, that there is importance to that message landing a specific way. So I want to make sure that we first set the playing field by just bringing that point to light, that when you're communicating something, you're not going to be packaging that information the same way as if you're just talking. We can talk and have conversations from a point of egocentricity. But if you want to communicate a message, if you're trying to manage impressions, if you're trying to be persuasive, if you're trying to be engaging, then these are different ways of communicating. And in that, it needs to be you outside of your own body, outside of your own objectives, of your own wants, needs, and desires, and really trying to gauge what that might be for the people around you. And so that can be something that you can assume, like it can be something that the environment would tell you. So if you're at a speed dating event, like one can assume that the intention is to make a connection. You can start with that intention, but then depending on how the conversations go, some of the answers that you're receiving, you can really be more nuanced. It's like maybe make a connection, maybe make a very short-term connection, maybe make a long-term connection, but you want to give yourself the opportunity to understand the intentions behind the person that you're communicating to, because in understanding their intentions, you can gauge what their wants, needs, and desires are, what it is that they're hoping to accomplish out of this conversation, and in enabling them to accomplish what they want, you're also going to get what you want, but you're not going to be able to do that if you're not first reading the room. So if that's something that the situation or the environment can tell you, or if maybe you need more information, then it's always great to start a conversation with asking some questions. You're going to ask the kind of questions that you feel are required for you to read the room. And read the room really means understanding some people's states of mind, understanding their emotional capacity in that point in time, and also understanding their desires, their needs, their wants, and their intentions. Having that information in hand, and even having just a subset of that information, gives you a higher probability of being able to read the room. And that's something that you want to be able to do, again, to be persuasive, to be compelling, and to make connections. We can't make a connection, a deep and authentic connection, from a place of egocentricity. And so when I say and I talk about egocentricity, it's when our thoughts and when our actions are determined by our own wants, needs, desires, and intentions. When you're communicating, you really have to communicate from a place of keeping in mind that other person's thoughts, wants, needs, desires, and intentions. So that's really very important. And now another point that I want to talk about around reading the room is how you do that, but still from a place of authenticity. I think that it's really important that we recognize that communicating and packaging a message isn't about being disingenuous. It's not about speaking in platitudes and providing false promises. It's not about showing up as the person we think that person wants us to show up as. And a lot of the times people think about communication, they think about shifting and changing, like being a chameleon, but not who you are. You're shifting and changing your communication so that it aligns with the person that you're talking to, so that you're speaking at the same wavelength. But the only way you're going to connect, the only way that you're going to get visibility on someone's vulnerabilities and someone's wants, needs, and desires and intentions is if you're coming from a place of authenticity. And that's really important because people don't like to feel like you're reading them to manipulate them, and understand that that's something that people can gauge whether they act on it or not. The majority of individuals have a sense as to when they're being handled, and no one likes to be handled. And when I say being handled is when you're leveraging some of these tactics to read the room, but then presenting yourself as someone other than who you are for you to again accomplish your own wants, needs, desires, and intentions. I think that communication is really work that we do, it's a collaboration that we do so that there's mutual benefits, so that there's a win-win scenario. Like it benefits me to communicate at your level, it benefits me and it benefits you that I'm making the effort and that you're making the effort also to meet me halfway. But again, it can't be from a place of being disingenuous, because no one likes to feel like they're being played. No one likes to feel like they're being handled. So that's not what I'm talking about here. I think that for me, communication is a service. It's something that I do so that I can be sure that the people that I'm talking to feel heard, they feel seen, because they are heard and they are seen, and because I do care about their intentions. I do care about their wants, needs, and desires. I do want to make sure that whatever is within my wheelhouse, I'm able to have accomplished for them as well. So it's a skill that requires some self-awareness. It requires a certain degree of emotional intelligence and emotional availability, because reading the room is really an act of vulnerability, right? You're reading the room, you're trying to get a sense as to people's states of mind, their emotional availability, their receptiveness to what it is that you're going to say that means something to you, right? And because there's a message that you have to translate that you want to fall well, you want it to land well. And in order for it to land well, to maximize your chances of it landing well, you have to really get into the heads of the people that you're communicating with. And this is going to shift and change depending on whether it's on an intimate level, on a personal level, to an acquaintance, a stranger on the street, or in a professional environment. But the objective is to have clear, collaborative, and supportive conversations, and being able to do that really effectively is to be able to read the room. And so I wanted to come on here and have that conversation with you, talk a little bit about getting out of our own heads and not operating from a place of egocentricity, not operating from a place of speaking only to be seen and to be heard. I think people are more receptive to seeing you and to hearing you if they feel like you're doing the work to see and to hear them. So that's why I wanted to come on here and talk about some food for thought for you, something to keep in mind the next time that you have a communication that's fairly significant coming up or that's really sensitive coming up. You want to make sure that you do it with the best intentions, and to also be very, very mindful of the fact that the success and the failure of your communication lies in your ability to really gauge what it is that the person that you're communicating to needs, wants, or desires from that conversation, and then making sure that you do what you can to meet them halfway there. So that's the topic of conversation for today. If you want more soft skill tips or more tips on how to master self and how to cultivate some of these soft skills and cultivate a higher degree of self-actualization or get closer to self-actualization, then definitely join our community of game changers. We do host live events twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our website. So definitely take a peek at that. And so for those of you also who are tuning in because you're curious as to my stalking situation, no information for you as yet, but you will be the first to know when I do. Thank you so much again, and I'll talk to you all very soon. We'll talk to you later.